It's the little things in the everyday handling that's going to make the big difference. So the day previous to this, when I was taking Mac's rug off and checking his feet, preparing him to go out in the paddock for the day, he wasn't very calm or settled or connected. So I thought that would be worth filming. So if you notice here, when Mac looked away, how this is a good example of our match and wait principle. So I recognized, that in that moment that whether there was something that really caught his attention or whether it was part of him getting distracted just because he didn't really want me to put the halter on that moment. But by pausing, which is also, or waiting, pausing, then that just gives him some time and causes him to feel like we're not just going to pressure him into something. And then you saw how he then came back and presented himself. So as you're about to see now, his backup is not very responsive. So we're just going slow and we're not forcing it. I've also got my hand at the base of his neck, asking him to lift his C6 and 7 up and back, which is going to help him to also then lift through here. You brush your head, which is a bit dangerous because then you could have back legs kicking out. But anyway, I just was able to get them stopped and then just walked backwards, walking them really slowly the whole way up with lots of stops to keep them in a calm, thinking and connected state. Ready? Come on. Steady, steady, steady. Steady. Okay, so this was hard to film as I didn't have my camera set up. I wasn't expecting to be having this problem when I was bringing the horses back. As I said, someone was leading a horse up the road, and that was enough to set both of these guys off, and they were excited and being pretty silly, and it was feeling pretty dangerous. So I had to get out in front so that if they leapt forward, I wasn't going to get kicked if they kicked out as they went forward. So anyway, this was little tiny video once I'd nearly gotten all the way back to where I needed to go and they'd settled down enough where I actually felt safe to video or hold the camera in my hand to video a little bit. So anyway, I couldn't video very long, as you see, because Flash wasn't really stopping. Flash is the white horse. So I had to stop videoing and just get him to stop and wait. So getting out in front and where we're safer, and when we're in front, we're sort of in a bit more of a stronger leadership position. And then I could use my sending the wave down the rope technique to get them to stop and wait. And I had to do loads of like little stopping and waiting, getting them thinking more about stopping and waiting than walking forward. So now, because even as we take this halter off, and just because he tightened his head up and he looked away a little bit, we're going to make sure, there we go, that he comes down here, that he's soft as we take all of this off. Yep, and it would be better if he didn't just look away, or to take his head away. If he can just be right here and still connected with me and really soft. That's our last little bit of that interaction together. Most time Mac's been up at the arena. It's been back here this time. And we're just going to go for a little walk around. Focus or most important priority that I'm focusing on with him is staying calm and connected and emotional regulation. Because if we've got that, everything else is going to be, if we haven't got that, nothing's going to work, and potentially it will be very dangerous. So anything that he does that is towards being calm, being connected, being in a thinking state, we're going to allow. So we're just going to let him stop and look at things when he's in a calm thinking state. If he stopped and he was just staring at things in kind of an escalator state, and I felt like he was moving into a good boy. So there he's asking a question. Now he's thinking about, he's offering to do something with his oxygen. So that's pretty positive. Let's see if we can get him to walk over these blocks here. There's a little bit. Because we in particular want to make sure those hind legs stay out of our space. So we're just replaying this little bit again to talk about that kicking out. So to me, the underlying emotion as he was kicking out then was not so much fear. It was a very conscious choice. He paused and then actually thought about it. He wasn't just reacting. That was like anger, defiance, defensiveness. And it shows the underlying emotion that's in there. You'll see again here, I think he kicks out with one hind leg. Remember if this is the moment when he does it or not. But again, it's showing underlying emotion, and that's what we've got to get good at reading. What is the emotion underlying the behaviours? And then as he kicked out, he sort of didn't regard me. He didn't completely run into me, but he kind of pushed into my space with his shoulder. There was that little kick out with that hind leg. So the backup was like just letting him know, it doesn't really matter what's going on. You need to be aware of me and regard my personal space. So I always find that giving them some good praise, like, when I say yay or well done actions, makes a big difference for them. And so there, as I walked in to give him a rub, he didn't really want that rub. There, this time he allowed me. He was happy to accept that. He accepted it only very briefly. So again, I'm just showing him that I'm going to listen to him. I'm not going to just make him do things. I'm going to invite him to try some things that I think that he can do, that he might like to do. If he wants to get confident with them. So let's have a little trot again. Good. And good. So you can see how big he overjumped that. I wouldn't like to be on him when he jumped like that. And that's just lack of confidence. So I liked how he went forward. It was a big forward canter. So notice also how he's looking away right now. And he's not just looking away with an intensity of, concerned about the other horses or excited. To me, that looking away was he's concerned about the next thing that I'm going to ask him to do, because he doesn't feel it's going to be a good thing. Like he's expecting it to be too hard or pressuring or not going to be a good deal. And so then that little change in his posture, how he looked to me and he dropped that head down, to me that was a sign that he was feeling comfortable to have another little interaction with me. So we can ask him to have another little go at going over this jump. It's a little bit playful, so he feels like on. That's it. Good. Yay! We'll see how we just cope living. The kick out towards me is an expression of how he really feels about people asking him to do things. So there, when his hindquarters came into me, I was watching for that. I was ready for that. As soon as that happened, I just put a little feeling halter and redirected his nose in here, which put his hindquarters away. But, you know, you'd call him strong-minded, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but he has a strong sense of self, which I think is a good thing, because it makes us be better horse people, because those horses aren't just going to put up with stuff. They're not quite so easily intimidated, and they're going to stand up and let us know how they feel. And because my approach to horsemanship is not about just shutting horses down, it's about how do we really inspire them? How do we get them to want to participate? You know, a long time ago, I decided, you know, if I couldn't get horses to want to participate, to be a willing partner, then I didn't want to do the horse thing anymore. And the more I evolve, the more that connection and that relationship, the more important that gets for me. So it's just not really an enjoyable experience for me if I know that my horse is not really wanting to participate, and if I feel like I have to force or coerce them into something. Good boy! So I'm going to reinforce that for approaching, so it's going to build confidence that when they see new and different things, we reward them for the curiosity and the interest in it. So instead of them thinking that everything new or unfamiliar in the environment is something to be scared of, we want them to think that being curious about those things is a good idea, and reinforce them for that. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, so now, we want to explore it a bit more. So there, I'm going to mark that, and you can see how as he went to paw it with his feet, he then looked back over here to see if I was going to reinforce that, which means he was communicating, he was asking a question, he was thinking about offering something. Okay, so what we're doing here with the cone is getting him to to listen to my communication and my body language, and about, do we want him to go and touch the cone with his nose, in which case I focus on the cone, I can say touch it, and my laser beam points to the cone, and so he can understand that. And then we're going to get him to see if he can put his foot on it. Yay! Good boy, well done. So I just teach him how to do the action first, and then I can put the word to it. Okay? So see, he did that pretty easy, and then I like the full one. Then if I focus my energy straight through, which normally I probably should have taken away and just let him through. So my laser beam, my focus goes straight through. That means walk through. Okay? So, the nose one was pretty easy for him, the foot one's pretty easy, he liked that. So let's just come around again and see if we can get him to walk through. So I've got to get really clear with my energy and my focus. So I'm focused through here, my energy's going through it, my body language, and you can see he wanted to stop and just do the sniffing thing, because he probably thinks that's easier. I'm going to get my little... People might think, oh, you know, that's just silly little horse games, like, you know, why would we want to do that? But the deeper purpose, like, I'm not just here just trying to teach him a few little tricks just so we can do tricks. If I can get him to listen, to think, to read my body language, again, that's just going to make everything else we're going to do in training and riding better and safer. So I wore these little things, not just because I like doing horse tricks, it's because I know that they can help us to have a more thinking. That's really good. So he's really listening to my body language and my communication there. So now this time, because he's done that confidently and without hesitation, like he was picking the right answer, now I'm going to go back and do the touch it. And very softly tapping here so we get that response. So that was really nice and soft. So he had qualities of soft and smooth, rhythm and flow. And now he stepped us in. You know, the biggest thing that I'm focusing on with him, probably two things. One is that his emotional regulation. So, you know, if he really gets escalated because he gets worried, or if he gets overexcited because other horses are moving around or running around, can he still listen and respond? And then the other thing, equally in priority to that, is can he have positive responses, and meaning that he responds and can give me yes answers because he chooses to, not a positive response in the sense of he knows there's going to be consequences if he doesn't move. So, you know, turning his... So there I've asked him to come around and give me lateral flexion, and so he's giving me a no answer, like he's leaning on that. I'm matching and waiting. You know, because I'm not in an out of control emergency situation, or wasn't in that moment, I could just match and wait. I didn't have to do anything else to just make it happen quicker. I just gave him time to think about that, and I want him to choose to respond. Okay, so we'll try it again. So that was better. And yes, it's probably also coming around because treats, but we can use treats, you know, as a way of changing his association with things until he really thinks that this is a positive experience. That's good. So then the next thing we're going to do, so after the lateral flexion, is I'm going to check out, can I do my little hind quarter yield? So we go down here, and there we go. Now I'm just slide that leg back so like it's just brushing here. It hardly moves at all. There's no inward pressure really. Now he took his head back, so I match and go with. I'm just going to harmonise, blend with that. Good. I'm going to do a little release and even mark that because he brought his head back. So he changed his mind from being sort of resistant. Good. There's a good big breath. That's good. Match and go with that. Again, we're just giving him time to think through, and we're not just going to force anything to happen. So he's just sort of barged through that halter. So again, I just matched, went with it, match and wait. Good. Now see, can we get that hind quarter yield? Again, I'm just waiting. So I'm not pressing more and more. I'm not trying to hurry it up if it doesn't happen straight away. Yeah, we'll just give him a moment to think about that. Good. Now we'll ask again. I've got to keep my weight over on the inside. So you see, he thinks about coming over, around, and moving over, and then he changes his mind. He's like, no, I couldn't do that. So instead of just getting into an argument or a fight, I'm just going to harmonise with that, blend with it, match and wait, and so he changes his mind. So you'll think about giving me a yes answer to following the feel on that rope. And there's a bit of pressure in that rope there right at the moment because I was just matching how much he leaned, and also he was feeling pretty confident in how he was leaning into that, which is different than if he was like really, really worried or defensive, and they're feeling like some horses, if you just hold, if they're really defensive that moment, they might rear up and flip over. But he didn't feel like that. It's like he was in a thinking state, so I could just match. And so now he was keeping his head there, but he wasn't giving me the yes answer to that yield for my leg. And so, he would have been reading with some different aids and cues in the there we go, 2.5 years that he was away from here. So it's like just going back and reminding him or teaching him the cues that we want to ride with. Good boy. Can you try that again? Yes, and see, there was a very positive yes answer. So it would be a comfort spot. Boy. Boy. Okay, so let's see if we can go around to the right. Here, the exact opposite. I'm just matching and waiting. I'm still just matching and waiting. In the moment, could have rewarded that, but I'm going to see some bit a bit more. There. So then when he could follow my direction. So in that moment, I just felt I could hang in there and wait just a little bit longer before I reinforced that I could be a little bit more progressive. In some situations, you would have to reward the sliders. Good boy. Again, he's trying to go back to the little comfort spot here. So we're just going to try not to reinforce him quite so much when he's right there. And then reinforce him when he can follow our focus or follow our direction. So there he's just put on the brakes again when I asked him to go. And this is one of the things that in the past people had trouble with getting him to go. He would just stop. Not really want to go forward. Seeing and ignoring that rein, and smashing and waiting. Even waiting. He can change his mind. Good, so I marked that, and then he went and leaned on the halter again, so we had to snatch the weight. Remembering what happens between the time of the marking signal and the delivery of the food matters. So match and go with, so matching got the same feel as we went with that. We're not just drifting around with him and see if he can change his mind and unlock that feel. Good boy, well done. And I like doing all this first with the halter because it's a good transition because we get them yielding and just soft in the halter on the ground. So then you're not just changing everything. Just going straight to riding and putting your bridle on, and yes, of course you do. Good boy. So I'm going to mark that. I know I just interrupted what I was saying there, but he changed his mind. He was going to stop at that barrel, his little comfort spot. And I asked him, would he just keep going? And he gave me a yes answer. But I wanted to really reinforce that. We'll start thinking about coming out here away from. Good. So there he changed his mind. And he went away from the barrel and he followed my direction. Good boy. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to say, yep, we'll go over here. Leaning on that. Touching away. Make sure that my seat and my legs, everything's soft, just matching and waiting. And putting quite a lot of pressure on that. And then mark that. Good boy. We'll just see if we can get a couple more positive ones and then we're going to just looking for a good place to stop. Where he's really just leaning on that. Good boy. Okay, so now let's see if we can move that hind quarter. Good. Good boy. Good. Again, we're just trying to... There. So he followed my rein, followed my focus away from that drum. Good boy. Another little walking leg out here. Good. So I'm going to finish on that one.